Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining our October informational webinar, Social Security Work Incentives. My name is Drew Andrews, and I'm the Assistant Director and Technical Assistance Coordinator here at the Florida Center for Students with Unique Abilities. This webinar is being recorded. Our presenter today is Angie Hoffman. Angie is certified through Social Security Administration as a Community Partner Work Incentives Coordinator. She currently works as a vendor for vocational rehabilitation in Florida through the Work Incentive Planning and Assistance, or WIPA, program, assisting individuals with developing an understanding of the impact work will have on their SSDI, SSI cash benefits, as well as their Medicare and Medicaid health care. She also explores how to best utilize the various work incentives available through Social Security's Ticket to Work program. And we're so glad that Angie's here with us. Handouts for today's presentation can be downloaded from the chat window in the Zoom icons down at the bottom of your window. And if you're having difficulty hearing, or would like to join by phone, the phone numbers for today's meeting are also going to be placed in the chat box. At this time, we're going to begin our webinar, and I would like to introduce Angie Hoffman. And thank you so much for joining us, Angie.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Drew. And welcome, everybody. I'd like to thank the Florida Center for Students with Unique Abilities for inviting me to speak today about the Social Security work incentives. If we can just go to the first page. Next, Iris. So let me explain first. I'm a Community Partner Work Incentive Coordinator in the WIPA program. WIPA is Work Incentives Planning and Assistance. And just to give a little history, back in 1999, the Ticket to Work initiative was signed into legislature, where the Congress had passed a bill, an act for Social Security to help beneficiaries return to work. It was a big promotion to help them get over the barriers that they have with the fears of returning to work. So they came up with this Ticket to Work incentives program. And that's what WIPA falls under, where it provides programs to help beneficiaries break through those barriers. And the whole goal is for them to try work and not be fearful of losing their benefits or their health care, and maybe be successful at work. And the goal is economic self-sufficiency. So that's how the whole program, the history of it, came about. And so what they do, it's community-based organizations that receive these contracts and grants from Social Security to provide these services. And there are a lot of other services under the umbrella of the Ticket to Work initiative, that like employment networks and different programs that fall under that to help the beneficiary return to work. And as the next slide shows, this is free benefits planning for beneficiaries. So they provide the benefits planners. And that's what, there's two different kinds. There's a CWIC and a CPWIC. The CWIC is a Community Work Incentive Coordinator. And they work through the projects. There's certain different, throughout the state of Florida, there are different projects that have received these grants and these contracts from Social Security to provide these services for beneficiaries. And the benefits planners that they have are called Community Work Incentive Coordinators. And as you can see, they provide work incentives planning to beneficiaries of Social Security benefits. They conduct outreach efforts to the families, and they help provide whatever programs are in the area to help the beneficiary become as self-sufficient as possible. And the next slide will show what the CPWIC is. That's what I am now. I used to be a CWIC. Now I'm a CPWIC, which is a Community Partner Work Incentive Coordinator, which they work through referrals from VR to help Social Security beneficiaries return to work. And the difference is with a program with CWICs, with the grants, you had to prioritize. And the priority was for the beneficiaries who are already working. And the beneficiaries who are just starting work or thinking about work were at the very bottom of the priority list. So a lot of them were not getting services as quickly. So VR had a lot of those clients, so they wanted them to receive this benefit. So they started a program where they would pay for those services for benefits planning. So that's how the community partners work incentive coordinator. So I'm a vendor through VR. And that's how I do provide services through referrals from VR. But it's all the same thing to help the beneficiary understand what work incentives are available when they return to work. Next slide. Why work? I mean, of course, it's helpful for you're with college students and transitional youth for them to have a purpose, to have a future, more independence, to learn new skills. So there's a lot of good reasons that you want beneficiaries to work. I mean, just because a person has a disability does not mean that they're not going to provide and want to have a purposeful life. So there's plenty of reasons to work. And that's where the work incentives help them to, if they are receiving benefits, that it doesn't, stop them from wanting to try work. Next slide. So with Social Security, there are 2 disability benefits. So when a person first applies for disability benefits, Social Security looks at the disability to see if they medically qualify for disability benefits. But the second thing they look at is, do they have a work history? You know, like when you go to work, Social Security takes a little bit out of your paycheck. That goes into this Title II trust fund. That's what Social Security disability insurance is. It's a Title II benefit. If you retire, die, or have a disability, it's money that's in that trust fund from your work history. So everybody's benefit is different. Some people could have a $2,000 a month benefit. Some people could have a $400 a month benefit. And Medicare is the healthcare benefit with that. So let's say the person applies for disability benefits. They meet the medical disability definition, but they've never worked before. And a lot of your students and transitional youth do not have a work history. So most of them are going to be eligible for what's called Supplemental Security Income. This benefit is completely financial need-based. The most a person can receive on this is what's called the federal benefit rate, and that's $914 a month. And Medicaid is the healthcare benefit with this. Sometimes a person receives both, and that's only when, let's say the person didn't have a very big work history, and their SSDI check, the Title II benefit, is only $400. Well, then SSI would supplement for $514. So they're at least getting that full federal benefit rate of $914. So that's why sometimes you have beneficiaries who receive both benefits. Okay, next one. Work incentives. The reason that Social Security came up with the work incentives is so that it's a safety net. So they can try different jobs and build their confidence and build new skills without that fear of, I mean, so many times you'll hear somebody say, I don't want to lose my benefit, or I can't afford to lose my health care. So these are the safety nets that help protect those so they can try work and become successful and become as economically self-sufficient as possible. Next slide. So we'll first talk about the Title II benefit, but I'm not going to talk too much. I'm going to spend more time with SSI because I think that more relates to transitional youth and college students. But there are some who could be receiving it as what's called a disabled adult child. If they don't have a work history of their own, or they may have a little bit of a work history, but if they have their benefit before the age, or if they have their disability before the age of 22, they could be receiving from a parent's work history if the parent is receiving a Title II benefit. So if the parent is retired, deceased, or has a disability themselves, then the adult child, and the terminology is not the best, but it's called disabled adult child benefits, they could be receiving it from their parent's work history. The first work incentive is a 9-month trial work period where they can go back to work, earn as much as they want, And Social Security will not look at this figure. When they're first applying for disability benefits, Social Security will look to see their definition of medical, their medical definition is their ability to earn income. If they're able to do what they call substantial work, which is a figure right now of $1,470 a month in gross wages, if they think that this person can earn over that amount, then they would not meet the definition of having a disability, regardless of what their disability is. So that's a figure that for this Title II benefit, they will look at just to see that they still meet their definition of disability. But the 9-month trial work period allows them to go back to work and earn over that 1470 and it not affect their benefit. But it's only for 9 months. And after that, Social Security will look closer to say, okay, they've tried work. Let's see if they still have a disability. So next slide. If they stop work during the trial work period, or after, what happens if I stop work after I complete my trial work period? Then they're not doing substantial work. If they've completed their trial work period and Social Security looks closer and they're not earning over $1,470, then their benefit just continues. But let's say that they were earning let's say they're earning $2,000 a month. Then what would happen is they would go into the next work incentive, which is called the extended period of eligibility, which is for the next 3 years. Anytime that they earn over that 1,470, their benefit would be suspended. But anytime they earn below it, they would be reinstated and have their back. So it's another safety net of 3 years even after that. And then there's an additional one. If their benefits stopped after the 3-year extension and they were earning like still over the SGA amount of they're earning $2,000 or $3,000 a month, but there's benefits stopped. But if it hasn't been more than 5 years and then they lose the job, they could be reinstated without having to do a new application. So it's just another work incentive safety net. Okay, next slide. And there's different other ones, there's subsidies and there's impairment related work expenses. There's other work incentives that would apply, but that could apply. But I'm not going to go into detail because I really want to focus on the SSI. So if we can go to the next slide. It's impairment related. Go ahead to the next one. And the next one. These are a couple others that could apply. And Medicare is protected too for, even if their cash benefits stop, there's protection of Medicare for up to 93 months from the time that they earned SGA. So the next slide. So there's a lot of safety nets in place for the Title II benefit. But SSI is what I want to focus on because the majority of you are working with youth and students who are college students who haven't really, are probably more receiving SSI than they would be receiving the Title II benefit. So let's look at the first SSI work incentive, or explain about how SSI, it's financial need based. So what Social Security is going to do is a formula. And anytime you're working with a student who's receiving SSI, they should receive letters from Social Security. And usually the very last page of the letter they receive will show the formula, will show how we decided on what their SSI payment would be. And it'll be this formula where they take 85, they take 2 exclusions, a general exclusion and an earned income exclusion, and it's $85. They'll subtract that from the earnings, divide by 2, and what's left is going to be countable income they'll subtract from that $914. So with SSI, everybody starts at $914. And then from there, it's going to be subtracted. But when you add the new SSI payment with what their wages are, they're always ahead. So they never go backwards, even though people will say, my SSI check is stopped or receiving less, they're still ahead because they're working. So I'll show you more. It gets confusing with the formulas. That's why we'll have worksheets to go through later. So the very first work incentive in the formula that they're going to look at is called the student earned income exclusion. And this is saying, and this is for any student who is under the age of 22 and who, when they're, whatever their wages are in the formula, they would take their wages, they could subtract up to $2,220. So let's say they're, for this example, $500 in the month. They would subtract that in the formula. You wouldn't need to divide by 2 or anything else because it'd be 0 that they're going to subtract from the $914. So this student is now going to receive their SSI check is going to stay the same, $914, and they now have $500 in wages. Is that the next one? That's a wonderful work incentive. Here we go. So Stephen is working at a retail store. He earns $15 an hour, works 20 hours a week. He gets an SSI check of $914. We have the earned income of $1,290. That's his wages for the month, gross wages. They always look at the gross. General income exclusion is 20. The earned income exclusion is 65. So that's the total 85 they subtract. Then you divide by 2, you have $602.50 left. So if he was not working, he would get his full $914. But because he's working part-time, he now has wages of $1,290. They're going to subtract $602 countable income from his SSI check. So his SSI check is going to go down to $311. But when you add that with his $1,290 wages, he's going to be making $1,601.50 that month. So from $914 to $1,600, he's still ahead by working, even though his SSI check went up. So that's how the formula kind of works with the student earned income exclusion. Okay, next slide. And if he's working full-time, the wages of $2,580, then we go through the formula, that gives $1,247.50 in countable earned income. So now his SSI check is going to zero out. So he's not going to get an SSI check at all, but he's making $2,580.50 a month versus the $914. So he's way ahead. But does he lose his eligibility? No. If he lost the job, he would still be eligible. Does he lose his Medicaid? No. There's a work incentive that protects his Medicaid as long as he's not earning. There's a threshold amount, and we'll go through that slide in a second. Okay, next slide. So here's the 1619B provision that protects his Medicaid. He would have to earn over $37,379 a year for the Medicaid to be in jeopardy. And there's even other protections that could happen after that. So is his Medicaid protected? Yes. Even if his SSI check stopped, he's still ahead by working. Okay, next slide. There's another work incentive called a PASS plan, a plan to achieve self-support. And this can help a student or beneficiary set aside money for a work goal and to save, because with SSI and Medicaid, they look at all income, but they also look at resources because it's a financial need-based program. You cannot have more than $2,000 in resources, but there are ways to go around that. There's ABLE accounts that you can set up to put resources in. And there's also a PASS plan that will let you put aside money to save towards a specific work goal. And Social Security will not count that as a resource, but it has to be approved by Social Security, and they watch it closely because it's a work incentive through them. They have PASS specialists, the PASS cadre in Birmingham, Alabama, that specifically their job is to read the PASS plans and approve them and keep track of them, work with the beneficiary to see that they've reached their goal. Okay, so we're going to go into a little more detail about a PASS plan with the worksheets. If you get both benefits, that's where it gets really confusing because each one is looked at differently. So that would be the time that you definitely would want to talk to a benefits specialist. Next slide. Next slide. We're going to go into the worksheets. These are resources. So if you're working with a student or a beneficiary and you want to know, I mean, first you could always go to your vocational rehabilitation office and they could refer you to a CPWIC. But if they're already working and you know, after they've found a job and they're continuing to work, if they call the ticket to work number, that will give them the WIPA projects throughout the state. They will send a referral and you'll hear from them within 2 days. So either Social Security Administration is a resource, your VR office. I didn't list all the VR offices because they all have different numbers, but definitely your vocational rehabilitation office and then the ticket to work hotline number are good resources. Okay, next slide. This is a map of the projects that are throughout the state who have been awarded the contracts and the grants, so that if you needed to contact them, that would be, but the best way to contact them is through a referral through the ticket to work number that was on the previous slide. But this just shows which project would cover your county of where you're at. Okay, next slide. And then that's just my information. And if we run out of time for questions at the end, we should have enough. But if we don't, the best way is to send me an email with your question, because then that way I can send you back any information or handout that would address whatever your particular question was. So my email is at the bottom there if you had any further questions. But now, Iris, if we could go to the worksheet so we can kind of expand a little more into the SSI work incentives. And hopefully everybody, if there's any questions, hopefully, I know it's very confusing, but if there's to help explain, I'm more than happy to answer any questions. But the worksheets, are they? She's coming, they're coming.
Iris, I can load them up if you want me to. Okay, look like, I think Missy had them in here already. The worksheets are already in the chat, if you take a look.
Yep, I'll add them again.
Yeah, okay.
I want to let everyone know, if you'd like to type a question, you can go to the chat box and send that to everyone, and we'll be happy to share your question if you have a question for Angie.
And you know, I know I skipped through one of the slides that was called the impairment related work expense, because it was in the Title II part, but it also applies to SSI. And just to kind of reiterate a little bit, another work incentive while we're waiting for the worksheets. But let's say anything that a beneficiary has to pay out of pocket for, an expense that they have that's for something that they need for work that's due to their disability. So let's say they have a modified vehicle and they need to get to work in their vehicle, then they can count, there's the mileage, or if they take special transportation, have to buy tickets for door-to-door services due to the disability to get to work. The money that they spend, that can be put into the formula, and I'll show you when we get to the worksheet. So that's another work incentive that could apply. So first, okay, great, here's the worksheet. So the first worksheet is just showing, there it is, SSI and work. John receives SSI only and goes to work, pretty much like the same example we did before, but he's getting $623.50 a month. You subtract the 20, you subtract the 65, the remainder is $538. Now, pretty much you divide by 2, so it's like Social Security counts $1 for every $2 earned. Is how a lot of times the Social Security rep will explain it. And so there's $269.25 that they're going to say is countable earned income. So when a beneficiary, when they get their letter from Social Security saying how we decided on your SSI payment, the very last page of their letter will show for the month of September. This is how we calculated it. And it'll show this on the bottom. And then at the very top, it'll have the $914 minus the countable earned income of $269.25. And that'll show their new SSI check. The new payment will be $644.75. So their SSI check went down. But when you add that with their wages, they have $1,268.25 for the month. So did they go back? They're ahead. They didn't go backwards.
Angie,
So,
we have a couple of questions.
yes.
Okay, the first, the person's saying this is very helpful, which it certainly is. But just to clarify, someone goes into Ticket to Work and then ends up losing a job, say 5 years down the road. They can get benefits back? ?
It's very individualized. It all depends on, number one, what benefit were they receiving? Were they receiving SSDI or SSI? If it was the SSDI, the Title II benefit, then after 5 years, if they were earning over that SGA amount, but it hasn't been more than 5 years since their check stopped, then they could be expedited reinstatement, but they would have to go, everything has to be done through a Social Security claims wrap, their decision, and they would have to show that the reason they lost their job or quit working is that it just was too much for them due to their disability. They would have to show that due to the disability, they were not able to still do substantial work. But yes, they could be reinstated. But SSI, it's a formula. So
But less than 5 years.
Less than 5 years, they still have that. If it's 3 years after they finish the trial work period, if they still have their trial work period, they have 9 months within a 5 years. But after that, it's 3 years. That it's an extended period where anytime if they lost their job, they're back on their benefit. They just have to let Social Security know that they lost their job. They have to, and what Social Security usually does is send what's called a work activity review, and they will ask all these questions about work and to understand more what work incentives would apply. But yes, they could be reinstated. Yes.
Thank you. Our next question, is there a work incentive that protects Medicaid for students over the age of 22?
Okay, say that again. Is there a
work incentive that protects Medicaid for students over the age of 22?
Sure, that 1619B provision will protect your Medicaid if your SSI check stops after the age of 22. So after 22, like the student earned income exclusion may not apply anymore, but then that's when you would look at other work incentives that you could apply. So yes, your Medicaid could be protected. If you're not earning over the $37,000 threshold, your Medicaid would continue.
Okay, next question. Does the parent's net worth, is it taken into consideration when being considered for SSI?
Okay. Yeah, see, and I apologize because it's very complicated. And in a short session like this, it's very hard to go through every little detail. But when a person is applying for Social Security benefits, and if they're over the age of 18, they are considered an adult. And so Social Security will look at their income alone. If they're under the age of 18, then the parent's income does come into play. And there are some other things that could come into play, like if they're living in their parents' home and not paying rent, it's called in-kind support and maintenance, because they look at, it's a financial need-based program. So there's a lot of little details that come into play, which is why it's very good to talk to a benefits specialist when you're receiving benefits, and especially when you're starting to go to work. But if they're over 18, no, the parent's income would not matter. But if they're under the age of 18, it's called deeming, and they will look at the parent's income.
Okay. And I'll tell you, Angie, you're getting more questions than we've had in a while on a webinar. So people are
That
very,
means I
very
must not have done a
interested
good
in
job with
this.
the PowerPoint.
The next question
Was very vague.
My child, who is 17 years old, is currently on my health insurance plan. Do I need to discontinue when he gets on SSDI?
I mean, it depends. You would have when he gets on SSDI. So they're 17. They must be meaning when they turn 18 to get on SSI. Because SSDI would be based on work history. So unless your son or daughter has a work history, or unless you, the parent, are retired, or obviously not deceased, or having a disability, receiving disability, a Title II benefit yourself, they would not be probably eligible, entitled to receive SSDI yet. But with SSI, they would get Medicaid, and it would be your choice. He could still stay on the parents, whichever healthcare you would feel is most beneficial to him. That would be your choice.
And we have another question. Is this type of training available for parents and guardians?
Benefits planning training? And I probably didn't explain this either, is that for benefits planning, we go through recertification each year. And Social Security has a contract with Virginia Commonwealth University, where we have different classes and tests that we have to take each year to renew our certification. So if you wanted to be a benefits planner, you would have to go through the VCU training, which is pretty intense at first, to go through the recertifications are more review type, but the beginning, to become certified is pretty difficult. But other than that, that's if you wanted to actually do the benefits planning. But to learn more about it, there's different trainings that are seminars and webinars that are often offered all the time through the Ticket to Work program. If you go on ssa.gov and you just look for different webinars or information on whatever specific benefit you're receiving and work incentive you may want to have a little more on, they have different webinars and some, that you could log into through their website.
Thank you so much. We have one more question. If someone is over the age of 22 and has no family support, what is the max SSI or SSDI would they receive per month?
Okay. The most any beneficiary can receive on SSI, Supplemental Security Income, because it's financial need based, is the federal benefit rate of $914 a month. And that's with Medicaid. The other benefit, SSDI, would vary. It would depend on what the work history was. So like I said, some people who had great jobs and gave a lot because they take out of your paycheck to put into that Title II trust fund. If someone had a really high paying job, their Social Security check, the SSDI check, is probably going to be a lot higher than someone who had a minimum wage job. So it would all depend on what that work history was. So the highest someone could receive on SSDI would depend on whatever their work history was.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. That's it for now, Angie. Sorry for so many,
okay.
But
no, that's okay. Let's go to the next
questions. Great questions, and thank you so much for your responses.
No worries. And this just explains how that SSI worksheet was, how you subtract the 20s and the 20 and the 65 and divide by 2 to get the countable income. Okay, next slide. The next worksheet is the student earned income exclusion again. And this is another example showing that Beth is a 19-year-old student and she's earning $12.47 a month in her part-time job. She gets to subtract the whole $12.47 because the as long as it's not more than $2,220, she can subtract up to that much that month. So it zeroes everything out. So she gets her full $914 SSI check plus her wages. So she has $2,161 that month. So it's a great work incentive for students under the age of 22. Okay, next slide. And that just explains it again. And there's a threshold for the year that, so each month, so let's say that Beth worked the whole year, but after, 9 months or 10 months, after she fills, if the total, because they accumulate it, if it's over the 8,950, so let's say by the end of the year in November, she's already used all that up, then we would look at another work incentive to see if anything else would apply. But you wouldn't need to apply anything else as long as you had the student earned income exclusion, because it zeroes everything out. So let's look ahead and see what another one would be to apply if she met that threshold. This is the IRWE, the impairment related work expense. So John is an SSI recipient who needs attendant care to get ready for work. Here is an example of him with $150 is what he spends for his attendant care. His paycheck is $623.50. So we do the formula, we subtract the 20. Let's say that John is 23 years old. So the student earned income exclusion doesn't apply to him. Let's just say that. So that would be what we would want to first apply if he was a student. But so we subtract the 20, we subtract the 65, then the remainder is $538.50. And in the formula, they have the next thing is to subtract the impairment related work expense before you divide by 2. So we would put in the $150, and then when you divide by 2, pretty much it allows John to get back half of what he was spending. So he's spending $150 a month for the personal care attendant, and he's going to be able to get back in his SSI check half of that, which is $75. So his countable income now will be $194.25 versus $269.25 if he didn't apply the impairment related work expense. So that shows how he can kind of keep a little more of his SSI check by some of his expenses. The same would be if he needed to take special transportation or anything else that he had to pay out of pocket for, like therapy, physical therapy. He needed that so he could work. But all of these would have to be approved. There's like a template, the benefits planner would help with that you would have to take into the Social Security claims rep so that they could approve it. It always has to be approved through Social Security. Benefits planners have knowledge, but they don't have any power. So it always has to go through Social Security. But they're there to help. And the cost must be paid by the individual. So like sometimes VR will give tickets for special transportation, but if the beneficiary is not paying out of pocket for it, they cannot count it as an IRWE. They cannot count it as an impairment related work expense. Social Security uses a lot of acronyms too. So if you hear IRWE, that's what that is. Now, this is something we didn't talk about yet, is the blind work expenses. Blind beneficiaries have a little more of, like their SGA amount is higher, that they can earn more with the Title II Social Security disability insurance. And with SSI, they have a little more of the IRWEs, which have to be paid by the beneficiary out of pocket. Now there can be other work incentives, other expenses that they need if they're blind, if they're eligible for this, that they can subtract. So Carol is blind and earns $723 a month. An example of $250 for meals at work federal, state, and local taxes and transportation. Now, if you a non-blind beneficiary could not count those as earnings in their formula, but because there were, but for blind individuals, they do have this extra work incentive for them. So if we look at this, they have $723 that they're making. We subtract the 20 and the 65. Then we look at dividing it by 2. They have 319. Then we can subtract what's called the BWES, the blind work expenses. And that comes down to their accountable income is only $69 that they're going to subtract. So they get to keep quite a bit of their SSI check. Right. And if we go to the next slide, it'll show some of the, let's see, it's available to receive based on statutory blindness. They have to meet the definition. Allows exclusion of any other work-related items that are paid out of pocket. They do not need to be related to the impairment. They need to be expenses related to working. So this work incentive only exists in the SSI program. So they aren't able to subtract those from it as a Title II in the Social Security disability insurance. So it's only with SSI if they look at those. And the PASS. I didn't really explain much about the PASS earlier, but pretty much it's a 10-page form that the beneficiary would state a goal. So let's say that the person the student you have wants to set aside money to become, well, let's see what the example is here. Oh, wait, let's go back to the top. Does it give Tia needs to buy tools for a mechanics training program she is beginning while working part-time. So she sets aside $357 a month in her PASS plan. Now, Tia, before she would be able to do that with a PASS plan, she would have to complete this 10-page form. It's like Social Security, for them to approve this, they want to know detailed what the work goal is. And it has to be a viable work goal. So she wants to buy tools for a mechanics training program that she is beginning. So Tia must be, show that she has this ability and interest to want to pursue a career in mechanics. And if Social Security will look at that, they're going to say, so Tia, what are the goals? What are your 5-year goals? How do you plan to reach that goal? What are you going to need to reach that goal? How much are you going to spend? So it's going to be a very detailed plan that she will have to present to them for them to say, okay, so you will be able to put aside. So the reason she's putting $357 aside, let's look at the formula. She's making $800 in her part-time job. She puts aside 85, the formula, subtract 85, the remainder is 715, divide by 2, 357.50 is what's her countable income. And that would be what normally gets subtracted from the 914 federal benefit rate. But Social Security will say, if they agree that this is a realistic goal that Tia has, and she's going to be able to complete this training program and become, a mechanic, that it's going to help her be successful, then the PASS cadre, the PASS specialists will approve it, and they'll say, okay, we'll set up a PASS account, savings account. You can put that countable income that we were going to subtract into this savings account, and now it zeroes out the formula, so you'll get the full $914 SSI check. You have $357 in the savings account every month that's accruing, and now you receive that with your wages, your $914 with the wages. You have $1,714 to live on for that month. So it's a wonderful work incentive, and it's pretty much an underutilized one. Whereas because it's so detailed, and I think if we go to the next slide, does it show? It shows the form number, I believe. Does it? I think it's 345. It's an SSA 345, but it's like a 10-page. If you go onto the ssa.gov, you can actually and click on plan to achieve self-support past plan. You can get a sample of one to look at, or if you email me, I can send you one to show you the different things you would have to list to show that it was a realistic goal. But for students, I mean, this could be very beneficial if they're already over the age of 22 and don't use the student earned income exclusion, or if they've reached the threshold on the student earned income exclusion. So it just is a good way to help them save for a future goal. And Social Security does not count it as a resource. Once they approve it, they will monitor that past savings account, and they will make sure that only the money that is saved in it is used for the things that you listed on your past plan. You can't just say, oh, I'm going to take money out of my past account to go out to dinner. No, it has to be used for the specific things that you list in the past plan that you're going to need to reach that goal, that work goal. Okay, next slide. I think, is that it? I think that's it. And like I said, if there's any questions that anybody has that they come up with after this, or feel free to email me and I will do my best to send you more information about it, because it's very hard to put all this information into a short time like this, because it can be very confusing. And I hope I haven't confused anybody, but hopefully I've helped explain some things. But I'd be more than happy to answer any questions with emails too.
We do have a couple of questions in the chat box, and then anyone that would like to, verbally share a question, they may do that also. The first question is, what are some other examples of appropriate pass plans? And I guess this is like for cars or a home. Are those part of pass?
Well, I did have a beneficiary one time that needed a vehicle modified so he could use his vehicle to get to work. And we wrote a pass plan to help find a car, to buy the car, and then to have it modified. So yes, a car can be used, or I mean, you can have that as a goal. A house, it would have to be a work goal. So if there was something in the house that would be up to the pass specialist, I guess, to decide. It would definitely need to be that you were going to work a workstation or something in your home that was part of that. But you know what? It
would have to be work related.
Yes,
basically
absolutely.
it would have to be work related.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right.
Because everything with that, and just some other examples, like there was one young lady I know I worked with who was at a daycare, and she had a learning, was hard for her to pass the test to work full time at the daycare with children, because you had to have a certain certification. And so we put aside money in a pass plan to save for a tutor to help her to pass the test. And that was a successful one. It could be for, depending what the work goal is, anything that, if it's a doable work goal, if it's something that, going to classes, to school, to, you can't afford if you didn't get any grants or scholarships and you needed money to put aside for education, to save towards that, as long as it was realistic and that the past specialist saw it as something you could achieve, and you list your reasons why, and Then you could put aside money to save for the computers, for the books, for the tuition. I mean, it could be whatever, as long as it's work related and it fits in helping you achieve that work goal. And the whole purpose is, and I'm just looking to see, I can, if that person wants to send me an email, and I will send them a list, a handout with all the different examples
Okay.
of
Okay.
some past examples.
Okay, and we have your email in the PowerPoint, and we're going to be sharing the PowerPoint with everyone in just a couple of days, along with the copy of the Zoom recording from today, as well as the handouts and an evaluation. But we've also placed an evaluation in the chat, and it was shared by Missy Glavy, and it says webinar evaluation. And we would appreciate you completing that evaluation. I'll keep asking questions, but as we're drawing near our time of an hour, I want to be respectful of people's time. And we would like your evaluation input, because we do take all of that information into consideration when planning webinars for the coming year. So our next, are there still, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, maybe there's one question that was before the one about the other past plans. Would transportation costs be eligible for this expense deduction?
Well, if they're paying out of pocket for transportation, that could be an IRWE too. So it could be just an impairment related work expense. But if it's something to save for the future, then like saving for a car and saving for college, or saving to pay for even like a personal care attendant. So like, let's say for they were paying out of pocket, but it's so much that they need to save so they can pay for a personal care attendant. So the plan to achieve self-support would be more for if it's saving towards it, that then they could use it. But yes, transportation, as long as it's work related. But I would think that they would be able, if it's just like transportation to get to work, it has to be special. It can't just be regular, for the IRWE. So if they need a car and they're able to drive to get to work, that would not just driving to work. Everybody drives to work. So that would not be eligible for an impairment related work expense. So then saving for a car would be, a past plan would be a good option. Does that make sense? That it would, that if it's special transportation that they're taking and paying out of pocket, that would be more the impairment related work expense. But if it's saving for a transportation for them to get to work, or if they have to take Uber, or
yeah,
then
I'm glad you said that, because we have, with some of our Florida Postsecondary Comprehensive Transition programs, some of our students have transportation issues. Still is a number one issue. As they work through the program, maybe go to a job site, getting some internship or work-based learning experience. Mm-hmm. Uber is one, or another service that our programs have been looking at as options. And so I'm glad you said included that.
Yep, I think that would be a good option.
Another question: would assistive technology be a part of the PASS plan, like an ORCAM, to assist the individual to be able to read work-related papers, to be able to do their work?
Yes. Yes. Okay. That would be.
Another, are WIPA offices, CP, WIC, able to support individuals to create and monitor their PASS plan?
Yes, they can help them with writing the PASS plan. The WIPA projects could probably help them along the way long term. The CWICs with the VR offices, it's usually just when the person is starting work that they do an analysis report. And then the WIPA projects they should refer them then to the WIPA projects for further follow along services. But the PASS specialist at Social Security will definitely be the person that monitors the PASS plan, but the CWIT can definitely help them along the way. But that's what the benefits planning is for. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Those are the questions that I see in the chat. Does anyone have another question? You can unmute yourself. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and turn the recording off